Acting Speaker, and I rise today to contribute to the Corrections Legislation Amendment Bill 2025, and I want to thank the Minister responsible for this very important bill. And I'm pleased, after following the member for Narrowcan, that those opposite are not opposing this bill, but I don't accept the amendments that have been put forward by the member for Caulfield. And the reason why I don't accept the amendments put forward was because that while handcuffing is an important safety measure, it's currently in place and currently used by custodial officers right across our prisons and right across the state. And of course, they have the option to use handcuffs when they need to. And I noticed the member for Narrowcan referred to the OH&S Act, which is a good act and an important act and for safety of all employees within all workplaces. And I dare say that those custodial officers have got a very good health and safety committee working on the safety issues within their workplaces, and I dare say that's why they are able to use handcuffs to make sure that they have a safer workplace. And that's the reason why I don't necessarily think that the amendments should be upheld. I think the custodial officers could work through that issue with their employer and through their health and safety reps and through their health and safety committees. Of course, the Corrections Legislation Amendment Bill 2025 represents a significant step forward in our ongoing commitment to strengthening community safety, improving the integrity of our corrections system, and of course enhancing those protections available to all those that work every day to keep our state safe. And the Allan Labor government has long held a firm commitment to ensuring that our corrections system not only holds offenders to account but also supports a safer, more rehabilitative and humane environment for those in custody and for those who serve within it. And it's really important that all those involved in the correctional system need to be safe. And of course, this bill responds to several priority areas requiring reform across the corrections system. It's also about strengthening the sentencing outcomes and clarifying the operation of existing legislative provisions and ensuring that the tools available to our authorities remain fit for purpose. And this bill introduces several amendments across four principal areas, and I'll read those areas out. Strengthening protections for custodial officers who face violence in the workplace, implementing the recommendations from the 2023 statutory review of the Serious Offenders Act 2018, enhancing reporting obligations under the Sex Offenders Registration Act 2004, making targeted improvements to the Corrections Act 1986 to address operational gaps and ensure legislation functions as Parliament originally intended it. And Acting Speaker, every day custodial officers perform an essential and often dangerous role in maintaining the safety and security of our prison system. And then we all know that they're dealing with some very hardened criminals that are incarcerated, and it would be very difficult to deal with some of those people. And of course, it's of the utmost importance that custodial officers make sure that they are well protected within their workplace. And of course, the work is very complex. Clearly, they'll be under enormous pressures. It's a high-pressure environment, and it's obviously very confronting sometimes with some very challenging behaviours. And I do know some prison officers, some custodial officers, and I know that it is really difficult work, and it's not only difficult work within the workplace, but they've also got to be very protective when they're outside of their workplace, because some of these people that have been incarcerated eventually get out of jail and they cross paths with custodial officers, so that can also be very dangerous for them. Of course, any assault on custodial officers is a very serious offence, and it can result in lasting physical harm and psychological trauma, and it deeply impacts the morale within that workforce. And again, it's like any service industry, whether it be custodial officers, police, ambulance, fire. They're big families, and they certainly support each other and look after each other and it is really hard when one is injured in the workplace. It does affect right across the workforce. Of course, too many of the offenders who assault custodial officers are not required to serve any additional time in prisons, and of course this bill will address that. It was due to some lack of clarity in the current application of the sentencing requirements under the Sentencing Act 1991, and it includes a presumption of that sentences imposed for offences committed by prisoners while in custody should be served on a cumulative basis. So, of course, the reforms contained in this bill will close that loophole for good, and the bill amends the Corrections Act 1986. It explicitly defines certain offences involving injury to custodial officers as prison officers, and this designation ensures that the presumption of sentence accumulation under the Sentencing Act will apply beyond doubt and requires the courts to impose additional prison time where appropriate, and I think all of us here would agree with that. And again, as I say, the opposition have stated that they're not going to oppose this bill, so I'm pleased that we're all very supportive of that, that if you harm a custodial officer in the course of their duties within a prison system, then you should get an additional penalty, and hopefully it's used as a disincentive against any violence against any custodial officer within the system. And of course, this recognises the fundamental right to feel safe within the workplace, and in particular within our corrections system. So, as I say, I think everyone is very supportive of that. And of course, a safe custodial workforce is essential to the safe, secure and rehabilitative operation of our prison system, and that's exactly what we hope to achieve out of that. It's not going to be achieved with every person that's been incarcerated. There are some that probably never will be rehabilitated, but you can only try. We've just got to make sure that part of that process is not about extending violence, continuing to extend violence against custodial officers within the system. And I'm pleased to say that next week and I think a number of members are going out to visit the new Cherry Creek Correctional Centre, the facility next week. I believe there's a tour on sometime next week, so I'm going out there to have a look at that. So I'll be very interested to see, and obviously hopefully talk to some of the staff that will be employed in that facility. So it'll be interesting to talk to them about their experiences and what they expect. Of course, Acting Speaker, the Serious Offenders Act 2018 provides the legislative framework for Victoria's post-sentence supervision and detention regime, a scheme that enables the courts to impose ongoing detention or strict supervision on individuals who continue to pose as an unacceptable risk of serious sexual or violent reoffending following the completion of their custodial sentence. And of course, in 2023, the government completed a statutory review of the Serious Offenders Act to assess its operation and effectiveness. And the review found that the Act is largely operating as intended, but made 13 important recommendations to strengthen the scheme and ensure its ongoing effectiveness and safeguarding the community. And I just want to skip over to the member for Narracanda and the member for Mulgrave raised the issue of, if I can find it in my notes, that the bill also clarifies some technical issues, but the one that's really important is the application of the no body, no parole provision. Of course, it's an important provision which is designed to encourage cooperation from offenders by incentivising them to disclose the location of their victims or their remains. And as both members referred to, it's important for families, in particular multicultural families, but I would go further than that, so it's important for all families to know where your loved one is or been found, or where the remains have been found, and how important it is to have closure. And it must be so difficult for families and family members and friends when they're unaware of where someone that's been offended against, seriously offended against and murdered and not know where they are. This is a really important bill, and I commend the bill to the House.